Today we are going to look at how to set up OpenIG as a reverse proxy for OpenAM. So for the sake of this demo, I have an OpenIG which I'll be setting up on port 8080, and the host name I'm using is karun.forgerocker.com. My OpenAM has already been set up. I didn't want to include those steps, the basic steps of setting up OpenAM in this demo. So I've already got an OpenAM up and running on port 18080. So let me just show you what I have from OpenAM's perspective. What I have is an OpenAM instance running in this URL. So if you notice, this is basically a URL is 18080. So I just log in and I can see that the configuration currently is of a standalone kind of environment, and I don't have any sites registered, and there's only one server which is on 18080. So let's quickly look at how we set up OpenIG. So here I have, I'll go to the command prompt. I'm going to my work location, which is my lab, where I have created a folder with my OpenIG war file and the Jetty. So I'm using Jetty 9.2 because I'm using JDK 1.7. If you're on JDK 8, probably you can actually use 9.4 or 9.3, the newer versions of Jetty. So let me quickly unzip Jetty, and I'm just gonna move over the Jetty folder to a simple name. Yes, Jetty maybe, so it's easier to navigate. So I have my web apps folder here, and there's nothing in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my OpenIG war file as root.war into this folder. This is mainly to, give OpenIG the control on all the URIs. So this is deployed as a root application. Now to start the Jetty web server, I'm just going to start it out of java-jar command. You could use a start jetty.sh in the bin folder as well. So as you can see, my OpenIG deployed Jetty web server is up and running. So if I go to 8080, it just gives me an OpenIG welcome page. So this means that the deployment went fine. So now let's try to create some configurations. So I'm going to stop this Jetty server and probably go a folder up and create a configuration directory for us to do the OpenIG configurations. I will call it OpenIG, and inside of that I'll create another folder called config. So OpenIG typically requires a main config.json, which normally resides in this config folder. So as you can see, I just created this structure, which is basically OpenIG and then config, and we would be placing some of the files. We will create them in this demo, but just to let you know, the home or the OpenIG base is this. So this is going to be the base folder for OpenIG. So let me just export a variable called OpenIG_base, and I use this folder name for setting up that variable. If I don't do this, typically the OpenIG or the Jetty server, since it's running as me, Karun Menon user, it tries to look at my home folder for a .openIG location which I haven't created. So I'd rather create it inside this demo folder so that I have all of them in one place. So now we are in config, so let me just create a config.json first. I'm not going to type the entire JSON file, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you what it is all about. So it's basically talking about a handler of the type router, basically where it just basically routes all of those requests to the port 18080 where I have deployed my OpenAM. And one more thing to notice is that the capture decorator essentially helps you to capture and see the traffic. Currently we are logging into the console as well as to the log file, so you could basically see all of that. So typically in production, the capture entity and capture exchange, these two variables, we normally set it to false. So I'll just quickly copy over this to my config.json, and we're done with configuration. Now one more thing what we would need to set up is a route. So basically there is something called a routes folder, and by the way, just for this config.json, you could basically go to OpenIG documentation in Backstage, which is backstage.forgerock.com, and go to documentations. You would see OpenIG here. You could go to 3.1. You could get the guide to OpenIG document, and it's right there in the beginning of getting started. So basically this is where the configuring OpenIG section, and you could basically use this to test out your basic configurations. And another important thing is routes. So we need to create a folder called routes. This would essentially be the sequence of processing that we would need to do. So we are not going to do anything great in our demo. So I've got a very simple routing logic, which is nothing but just forward everything to the client handler, which basically means that we would redirect everything to the base URI. So by default, the route, the default route name is actually 99-default. 99 has been kept so that that's the last one that's being processed, but this is the default name of the route. So I just create a 99-default.route, and let me see, I just have a very basic route, which means that it's just a default route and just redirect back to the client handler. So I save these two files, and now we have our I hope I have set the OpenIG base. Yes, I've set that, so I can basically restart my OpenIG with this set of configurations. So all we did was create a config.json and create a default route which just routes all the requests from OpenIG to the OpenAM web container. So I just go to Jetty and do a java -jar start.jar. So there we have our Jetty up and running. Now let's just quickly try to hit the URL. So ideally this should just give me the Tomcat where I'm running my OpenAM. So I'm just going to try it, and yes, so I could see that the route is already working. So if I go to OpenAM, it can technically load you the OpenAM screens. But as you know that in OpenAM there are certain settings that we need to enable. What I'm going to do is basically go to OpenAM. So I go to my 18080 URL, and I look at my configuration on servers and sites. So I define a new site. I just give a name, and the primary URL being okay, it's giving me something, so I'm just gonna modify it. So I'm just gonna change it to 8080. That's where we are running the OpenIG application. So I've just created this new OpenAM site. Now what I need to do is I have to go back to my server. I have to choose a parent site, which is in this case OpenAM site, which I just created. So as you can see, this server has been assigned, and we could directly hit the URLs from OpenIG. So let's try hitting the URL from, let's say, Chrome. So as you can see, it's already routing me to OpenAM, and it's been done by OpenIG, and I could, from my Jetty logs, I can see that the request had hit my OpenIG, and it's basically processed the exchange. So I just try to log in here, and everything looks fine. So as you can see, those cookies have been set. For example, once I logged on, and then I've been routed to, a lot of these transactions happening here. As you can see, the entire website's being loaded. You could actually see all the content which has been loaded, like the JavaScripts which were passed through, the pages that were passed through. So we could basically snoop through all of those information. So that's all I had. So I hope this is informative for you.